Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Reimagine 2021 version 9, Game of Chains. We're back with another event, and this time we're exploring side chains, all the innovation that's happening on layer 2, and just talking about from a macro level all the different blockchains that have been made so far and what's happening in the space currently. I'm Roshan Mirajkar, one of your hosts for this event. And I'm very excited to bring you a new guest on our show today. With me here today, I have Justin Banon, who is the co-founder of the Boson Protocol. Justin, welcome to the show. Really excited to have you here today. And yeah, just to start off, I think it would be really interesting to know what interested you in the space to jump in and how'd you get in?
Sure. Well, thanks for having me, Roshan. It's a pleasure to be here. So yeah, my journey into blockchain was really through, I guess, a bit of an unusual route in that I started out, I studied physics, and then I ended up doing a master's in digital and got really sort of obsessed with what I kind of termed like the physics of business, right? Which is like business models and value flows and feedback effects and all of these kind of different loops. I did this master's in digital focusing on network effects and platform business models. And I used that I was working for a kind of analog company called Priority Pass at the time. And I used all that kind of platform theory to grow them from like 50 million to about $1 billion turnover platform. And then, just this continued interest in business models, network effects, led me to, discover that there's this whole new area of business with things like tokens and token-powered network effects, and you could program, blockchains to do different things. So it was like having an expansion pack to the business model toolkit. And so that's where I started getting into blockchains. But then I also realized that that these blockchains and decentralization enabled you to fix some of the real problems of platforms, such as excessive extraction and unfairness and this tendency towards market failure. And so yeah, that was the route. I ended up doing a second master's in blockchain, and that was the route down which I kind of fell into the rabbit hole that we're all in.
Yeah, it's always interesting to hear when like people come from the traditional world and into blockchain, and then it's really hard to leave because there's a lot of problems, a lot of innovative things happening around you. And I think we're going to get into some interesting topics, but I want people to also understand kind of what you're building and your ethos of what's important to you. So, what's been important for you and your team the past year for the decisions and things that you guys are building?
Sure. So I mean, Boson Protocol is a protocol set of smart contracts using NFT and DeFi infrastructure built on top of Ethereum, and that basically enables commerce between buyers and sellers, coordinates that commerce without the need for intermediaries and the excessive extraction that they bring. So if you think of something like Amazon, that would, kind of sit in the middle between a buyer and seller, ensure both behave, ensure the exchange takes place, etc., and just generally coordinate. That's Boson Protocol seeks to kind of replicate that functionality, but in an automated and decentralized way. So, to answer your question, primary metrics, well, as an evolving project, the primary metrics for us right now are two things. One is developing that core protocol layer to actually do the job that we need it to do. And for that, we've got, we've amassed some of the brightest minds in blockchain and beyond. So, we've probably got about 6 or 7 PhDs working in various areas, and, some really highly skilled people from, kind of game theorists, top research game theorists, behavioral economists. We have a guy called Aditya, who's one of the Ethereum 2 core researchers, developing Ethereum 2, who designs our protocol. Our tech lead on the protocol is, one of the previously the MakerDAO top developers, etc. It sort of goes on and on. We've got advisors such as Dr. Primavera De Lippi, the #1 blockchain legal scholar, all working on this core protocol, solving the hard problems that will enable us to basically disrupt e-commerce with a Web3 version that we call decentralized commerce. So, that first problem is getting something that works, but that's not enough. I mean, there's many occasions in history where we've got an amazing piece of technology that no one uses. So the second part is building really cool products on top that showcase and drive usage and adoption. So yeah, we're building products across sort of 2 or 3 verticals that leverage Boson technology and drive adoption.
Definitely, like user adoption and having good infrastructure is really important. So it's great to hear that you have like a very experienced group of people around you that are helping you build this. But what is your, in your words, like what is your vision for the decentralized autonomous commerce? I think it's a very new term, and how are you envisioning this being blended into our real life, so to speak?
Yeah, well, I think, the end state is that we have, Boson representing like an internet of commerce. So you've got an internet, if I wanted to send you a file or a data packet, it's really easy to do it via TCP/IP. And if I wanted to send you, some money, I can do it using Bitcoin or, Ethereum or an ERC20. It's very, very easy to do, right? But if we wanted to conduct commerce where you send me a physical item and I send you some money, for that, we still need either intermediaries like Amazon or some, there are some kind of clunky early decentralized commerce protocols, but they still require human intervention. So our end state is having Boson Protocol as this kind of like TCP/IP for commerce, upon which a whole ecosystem of interoperable, composable, applications and components is sitting, that's disrupted. Instead of these big verticals like, Alibaba and Amazon, you've got an ecosystem of players. And, as we like to say that, we're looking to create maybe 10,000 millionaires instead of 2 trillionaires. And that's that's the end state vision for Boson Protocol.
Wow, I've never heard anyone, not just people talk a lot about the redemption, like an NFT can, for example, redeem something in the physical world, but you're talking about the actual exchange of like making things interoperable between both worlds. So kind of like while we're on this topic of what you're saying about TCP/IP, what's your perspective on the types of blockchains that Boson Protocol interacts with? Do you guys only use one blockchain or many?
At the moment, we're building on Ethereum, and we're building on Ethereum and integrating with Polygon as a layer 2, scaling solution. And we are pretty agnostic and pretty practical about, which chain or chains to build on. We expect to be, building a multi-chain in the future. And we are open-minded as to what solution emerges from in terms of scalability and performance. And the fact is, it's not always the best technology. I mean, history has shown us, QWERTY and Dvorak keyboards, Betamax and VHS. It's not always the best. There's a huge degree of social coordination. And if everybody is on one blockchain, then even though it might be less performant than another, it might, for us, it makes enormous sense to be on Ethereum because, yeah, we leverage NFTs. We leverage both NFTs and also DeFi infrastructure to sort of tokenize assets and enable them to flow around. And it's where all the other projects that will be interoperating with exist. But with the advent of sort of cross-chain solutions and stuff, I think those barriers will be reduced. And I think I see a world where there will be multi-chain, that it will be a multi-chain world where assets will shift between chains and different chains have different, I guess, attuned for different attributes. But so we're pretty pragmatic, and our aim is to develop the best solution for our for our users and performance. So we have to be pragmatic.
Yeah, that's interesting to hear that you guys are building on Ethereum right now, but thinking long term about other layer 2 or scaling solutions. Because if the commerce in the real world is really going to shift onto these blockchains, it's going to be a lot for just one chain to do it all. The world's commerce. But I know we were talking a little bit before this as well. How do you think NFTs can be used for marketing and adoption within the crypto ecosystem?
Sure. Well, I mean, the way we use NFTs for Boson is, I mean, most people use NFTs as a static, scarce digital item, like a wearable, a pair of Gucci sunglasses or sneakers, or a piece of art, right? But we use NFTs as our NFTs are programmed, they have state. Our NFTs are more like one of those little mazes that you find on a coffee table where there's a little ball that rolls around. Our NFTs are encoded with a game that a buyer and seller plays, and depending on how they play, it slashes or rewards. So yeah, so our NFTs are quite different to the static case. They're stateful, but we're also Boson Protocol is also very, very useful as a redemption mechanism for loyalty programs. We're also developing a loyalty program. I mean, one of the businesses I used to run was in loyalty, an NFT-based loyalty program. So NFTs have got such a wide range of utility, from being like an NFT voucher encoded with the rules that will release payments and unlock a physical asset, to also an NFT that is like a key that will enable that will conditionally qualify you to even make the purchase. So for example, in the loyalty program that we're developing, there will be certain types of NFT vouchers or certain transactions that you'll only be able to make, you'll only qualify for, if you have one of our NFT loyalty NFTs in your wallet. And so what that enables us to do is unlock things like, loyalty mechanisms, gamified quests, rewarding users for certain behaviors and branded quests, and rewarding token holders, reward all of these sort of things by assigning properties to this sort of loyalty NFT, and then that loyalty NFT unlocks other attributes. So I think a lot of the same mechanics, gamified mechanics and loyalty mechanics apply. It's just far easier to program these. And instead of programming them in these external database systems and then having to refer to these systems in order to apply the rules, you're actually programming the rules within the sort of transaction tokens themselves. So I see a world where NFTs are just composable, rule, and just a super gamified and loyalty driven commerce world. A really exciting one.
Yeah, I'm glad you talked about that a bit. I know you have a background with rewards and loyalty points, and there's so much value that's just locked up and not liquid. So I think that's a very exciting space to watch. But from your perspective, with things like NFTs and also how you're also democratizing commerce, who are going to be the main people that are going to benefit? Is it, in some cases, could it be institutions and people at the top, benefiting from NFTs, or do you think it's going to be basically retail users, independent workers who are going to benefit from this technology?
I think there's a battle that's kind of been raging for a while on who benefits, and with things like e-commerce and traditional e-commerce, current winner is big platforms like Amazon, and so Boson seeks to disrupt that. But strangely, in my view, also in the NFT space, which is a decentralized space, there emerge platforms that seek to control and extract, even in a decentralized space. And so I think there's a battle there between centralized and decentralized, kind of solutions for NFTs. And a big part of Boson Protocol's sort of vision and mission is to ensure that commerce in the metaverse is free and open, and creators and users all share in the value they create, rather than having it's a quite dystopian kind of future if you imagine a metaverse, which is like something from Ready Player One, where you've got this huge monopoly running the world and just siphoning all the value from everyone. So the future's not set, but we aim to ensure it's free and open, and the value gets retained by creators and users.
Yeah, I mean, it certainly feels like it sometimes, like in the financial world, that we do have these monopolies who are just running the financial infrastructure. And before blockchain and crypto, you didn't have a open protocol for money, I would say, like TCP/IP, for example. So what are some of the problems you see right now in the space? And I know we talked about commerce a good amount, but I want people to really understand why you're so focused on the commerce element. Like, do you believe that this is the item that's going to get the next like billion people into crypto?
Yeah, I mean, I think I think that there's this huge, well, there's two things. There's this whole challenge, between how blockchains communicate with the real world, and commerce is one very major example of that. And that there's this whole notion of the data oracle problem, which is that blockchains, how do they trust real world data? And an oracle is, and such as Chainlink, are solutions to that. But there's another problem, which is how do blockchains trust sort of real world asset exchanges? So if I tokenize my car and you buy the token, that's great, you've got the token. How do you guarantee that you get the car? And that's like that's the asset oracle problem. So, and it's pretty fundamental. So for us, if that problem remains unsolved, then it has some pretty wide-ranging implications for Web3 technology. It means that either Web3 technology cannot interact with the physical world, without the need for some sort of centralized intermediary, right? Either a centralized intermediary or requiring sort of human, human intervention of some sort. And so that's a pretty profound kind of use case, and that's the one that we deal with.
Yeah, it's pretty interesting to hear. And so I know one theme of the Boson Protocol is like you guys want to kind of tokenize everything, or at least you believe we'll live in a tokenized world. So what are some practical or cool things that you envision when everything that we create or exchange can be tokenized? I think you call it the open tokenized economy. Like, kind of paint us a picture of how that ecosystem would work, because it doesn't exist, nothing like it right now.
Sure. You know, at the moment, well, 10 or 20 years ago, if you think about commerce, it was all conducted pretty much face to face with physical items that you would go into a physical store, you would discover, you would transact, maybe you'd hand over physical money and you'd get a physical item in person, etc. And then with the advent of the internet, certainly Web2 platforms emerged where you had a digital representation of an item online, and you would use digital money to purchase a promise that you were going to receive a digital item, right? So essentially, when you go to Amazon, you pay with the promise that you're going to give digital money through your credit card, and you receive the promise that you're going to get a physical item, right? And over time, those promises are fulfilled. However, it all happens on a closed, it's like a closed market system, a closed database. And there's no, it's all within this walled garden, and you can do that on Amazon or eBay or Alibaba. But there's no, it's a bit like the early days of the internet, where you're probably a bit young to remember, but if you were an MSN Microsoft Network customer, you couldn't email an AOL customer. That was a big breakthrough innovation when they enabled it. There were these closed networks, and that's what commerce is like now. And it seems normal, but it's weird, right? But imagine a future where all of those items, all of those kind of, I don't know, televisions and cars and sunglasses, instead of being siloed within transactional databases, not accessible and searchable, that they are all represented in a common interoperable format in basically just on an open protocol, so that anybody can search for those items, and you can use things like economic agents, or these things all exist in a sort of an open internet of commerce. And it's it's a bit like moving from these kind of closed market economies to, if you look at like the commodities market, right? You can buy 10 tons of cocoa beans. You can do that on a digital commodities exchange in Shanghai, right? You can do that. But you couldn't buy, I don't know, 10 tons of bicycles, right? Because they're not commoditized like that. That's what Boson Protocol does. It tokenizes real world items into this common interoperable format and creates this like liquid digital marketplace for things. And because we use standard DeFi infrastructure, so we use a combination of, yes, we use NFTs for the redemption, but we actually tokenize into ERC20. So you can actually have these kind of green bicycles or, coffee bean flowing across DeFi infrastructure like any other ERC20. So, in the same way, Ocean Protocol is using DeFi infrastructure for data, we're using that infrastructure for things. And it's not a coincidence. I mean, Trent, one of the co-founders of Ocean, is one of our earliest investors, and mentor and advisor. So we believe we're one of a succession of projects that will be using DeFi infrastructure to tokenize different asset types.
Wow, it's so, like what you just said, that's such a cool soundbite, and it's so refreshing to hear you talk about like real world commodities and items that we actually use, because I think not that it's bad, but there's a lot of people that are building more and more infrastructure only within the DeFi infrastructure. And like to your point, if we do the same thing again, it's going to be another innovative closed system, so to speak. And maybe we don't want that. So in your view, like if you're creating like this new economy, this new market, and if the traditional players, for something like commerce, they don't have the same type of control, how do you think we're going to keep, like, what's the incentive for competition, you think, in the future if they don't have things like being the gatekeepers to commerce?
Well, I think the incentive for competition is typically, either an altruistic, wanting to set something up to make a better world, or to the incentive to earn some reward. And we think that's perfectly, incentivizing innovation is exactly what we want to do. But the system is skewed in such a way that the returns that you get for scale. So once you get to the size of Amazon, your effect on the market is so great that it's almost impossible for others to compete. What we want is a level playing field with, as we said, like tens of thousands of millionaires all operating stores and components, etc., and competing fairly and fairly distributing the trillions of dollars of profits from commerce, rather than it all aggregating to these mega players who then just keep eating more and more of the supply chain till it's impossible to compete. So we're absolutely pro competition.
Yeah, I don't think competition is bad as well. Like competition kind of encourages innovation. And kind of going deeper into that, like how do you think we can use game theory elements to increase adoption and also education inside the blockchain ecosystem?
Well, I think for adoption, game theory, I mean, we combine game theory and behavioral economics, right? So, and that's pretty, like, for example, loyalty does that as well. It's not rational to, people will, if you offer people a flight and you reduce the price by, like $100 flight, you reduce the price by $1, it has no effect on their behavior. But if you give people 100 loyalty points and they're worth a cent each, which is equivalent to $1, you'll get a massive swing of people moving towards the loyalty. And so so these, non-rational behavioral economics is such a massive factor. And I think, that is encoded within a lot, certainly, within Boson, for example. We rely on both rational game theory, but also behavioral economics to encourage the actors to behave fairly in such a way that, it reduces the need for any human intervention to manage disputes, right? Because they're playing a game where it's in the best interest for them to behave fairly. So that's the first thing. But then also driving incentives, it's using game theory and reward mechanisms, which are baked into Boson, and also Boson is a way of rewarding, are really powerful tools for adoption, and really I think one of the most powerful tools for adoption is fun, right? It's making things fun, making things interesting, making things cool. And the products that we're building on top of Boson have that. Boson is a very deep tech piece of infrastructure, but we're building things on top, such as we're building this this whole virtual mall in Decentralized, and we have a vision of opening these malls across every world and every game. And these are places that are going to be like experiences for brands and experiences. And they're going to be like gamified quests where you go and do a quest in world and continue it, in the real world, and can collect scarce and valuable Easter eggs and all of these kind of mechanics. These are the things that drive adoption.
Definitely. And before I forget, since you mentioned Decentraland, I know that you all recently made a 6-figure purchase on Decentraland. I think it was one of the largest purchases, like all cash or something like that, cash equivalent. Tell me about what was the ideology behind this purchase, and what do you truly believe for the next couple of years, the future of like digital assets as transposed to physical assets that we're all putting value in right now?
Yeah, well, I mean, the vision of Boson is absolutely this core piece of infrastructure. I mean, what I did previously is I built a digital platform that was a very deep tech piece of digital technology, and on top of that built these amazing cool products. And pretty much that's what we're doing with Boson, except it's a blockchain platform. It's going to it just makes it really easy to do all of these transactions without an intermediary. And then we're going to build really cool products. And so our, as I mentioned, we're building a virtual mole. We're going to put a virtual mole in every world in every game. And that virtual mall will be this incredible space for creating kind of experiences, events, commerce experiences. We're working with the amazing team at Decentralized to build our technology into the fabric of Decentralized to make it easy for builders to kind of create experiences that enable their users to buy NFTs in world and redeem them in store and redeem them in the real world. So, for example, like, branded quests that you'll be able to go and do in the world and then maybe complete in the real world. So kind of that involve purchasing one of these Boson NFT vouchers that's then redeemable kind of in store or via shipping. And so, we will expand across all worlds and all games and really facilitate this digital to physical commerce as this sort of bridge between the metaverse and the universe.
I think that's so innovative, and I've never really heard anyone say that specific thing about bridging both the metaverses. And it's just very interesting because, again, you're not just talking about redemptions, you're talking about things that you can actually use, like if you could physically use your digital assets, so to speak. So what are some of the partners that you currently work with closely, and are there any specific, I guess, blockchains that you're looking to expand to, or that you're just a fan of?
Well, I mean, partners, we're sort of announcing progressively. What we're doing a range of luxury, high street, and sort of mainstream brands that we're working with to create retail experiences, events to create crossover event experiences. But what we're also doing is sponsoring a number of up and coming sort of digital fashion brands and giving them free space and even sponsoring them and providing them with the technology and exposure to grow and kind of grow this sort of nascent space. So an example is an incredible digital fashion team called Ouroboros, who are actually on the Outlier Ventures base camp, which we went through the inaugural cohort, and now I mentor the teams on that accelerator, and Ouroboros do these incredible digital fashion designs, and we're sponsoring them. We sponsored their show at London Fashion Week on Saturday actually, and we'll be giving them space and advertising and all sorts of sort of technical and what other support that they need. So it really kind of starts there, but then also with the more established brands that are more kind of in the kind of physical world, really creating packaged experiences, and we pull together lots of expertise in 3D design and metaverse marketing and game design to create these incredible experiences for them that kind of start in world and end in store.
Yeah, well, thank you to you and your team for doing the important work of like even supporting the next generation of startups and infrastructure. It's all so new, so always in the crypto world, you got to like stick together and breed ideas off of each other for sure. And to kind of end things off, I want to give you a chance to tell us about any latest updates or things that we can expect in the coming months, and also how can people connect with you and your project?
Well, yeah, absolutely. And in terms of updates, we will be continuing to develop the protocol. We're expanding from physical to being able for Boson being the decentralized exchange for anything. So physical, digital, like digital downloads, like Netflix movies, whatever, and then also on-chain items. So with a single interoperable NFT voucher, you will be able to exchange any type of asset at all, which is like super exciting. But as I mentioned, we're building out these whole virtual mall concepts and also a whole NFT loyalty program, all interlinked, and really just looking to fund and kickstart a whole ecosystem of loyalty, redemption, rewards, and commerce, and trying to encourage, sponsor, and support as many projects within that ecosystem as possible. I mean, our vision of the future is a fair, equitable Web3 future, and that means, helping as many projects, and in the same way that we've been helped. And so, yeah, if any of your listeners have an idea, whether it's a kind of a crypto or more of a physical idea that that's to do with events, experiences, retail, commerce, then please get in touch. info@bosonprotocol.io is the email, or on our Telegram or Twitter. And yeah, we're looking to really kind of fill that space with amazing talent and innovation.
Yeah, awesome. Thanks, Justin, for being on Reimagine 2021 today and taking us through the metaverse. It was really interesting to talk to you, and I encourage everyone to check it out.
Great. Thanks, Roshan. It's been a real pleasure.
Thank you. And I'm your host, Roshan Mirajkar, and I will let you all tune back into the rest of the Reimagine show. Thank you.